I found out through YouTube his commencement address. He was at the podium, a bright light, thanking everyone who had shaped him into the man he was today. My name wasn't uttered once. Not once. After 18 years of raising him, of sacrifice and unwavering devotion, I had become utterly, devastatingly invisible. So, the very next morning, before the sun had fully crested the horizon, I made a single, cold call to the university's financial office. I transferred his entire graduate school, fund every last cent to someone who I knew, deep in my soul, would actually appreciate it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. My name is Arthur Sterling. I am 67 years old, and until 3 months ago, I was certain I knew the meaning and purpose of my life. I was wrong. I spent 39 honest years teaching high school history in a quiet coastal town called Southport. It wasn't the kind of profession that made you wealthy, but it was noble work. I truly loved those students. Seeing their eyes light up when they finally grasped the significance of the Enlightenment or understood the complex gravity of a world war, that was my entire reward. That was enough. My wife, Elara, felt the same way. She taught art at the local middle school. We had a beautiful, simple life together. We never had children of our own. It simply wasn't in our cards. We endured years of quiet struggle, but eventually we found a deep and lasting peace with the reality of it. We had each other. We had our students. We had our little cottage on the north end of town with a sprawling, wild garden Elara would tend to every weekend with meticulous care. Then, when I was 49, my younger sister, Lydia, died. It was a tragic accident on the interstate near Port Royal hydroplaning on a sudden downpour. She didn't stand a chance. Her husband, Peter, had passed away 3 years prior from sudden neurological illness. They left behind a 4-year-old boy named Julian. Julian, my grandnephew, my sister's son's boy. There was no one else. Peter's parents were frail and residing in assisted living. Lydia's other family lived overseas and had their own full lives. It was us, Elara, and me or foster care. We didn't even pause for a second. We drove down that same week and brought Julian home. He was so tiny, so lost, and so profoundly confused. He would wake up every single night, screaming for his mother. Those first few months were a brutal, silent endurance test. I would sit with him in his little room until the first signs of dawn, reading him stories and whispering that everything was going to be all right. Elara, bless her heart, would be downstairs making 2 a.m. hot chocolate, laced with just a touch of cinnamon. We were constantly exhausted. We were nearing our 50s, certainly not young parents, but slowly, miraculously, he began to heal. He started to laugh again. He started to smile. By the time he was 7, he was calling us Grandpa Arthur and Grandma Elara. We never asked him to, but we accepted it as the sweet, organic truth of our new family. We wanted him to remember Lydia and Peter. We kept their photos up, told him stories about their kindness, and ensured he always knew where he came from. We poured everything we had into Julian. Not wealth, we never had much of that, but the true currency of life. Time, attention, and unconditional love. I showed up at every single one of his swim meets, even the 5 a.m. practices in the deep chill of autumn. I was there in the humid natatorium with my battered old coffee thermos, cheering until my throat was raw. Elara baked for every school fundraiser and stitched his elaborate Halloween costumes by hand. We worked through his homework every night at the old oak kitchen table. When Julian was about 13, Elara fell ill. It was pancreatic cancer, swift, silent, and aggressive. By the time the doctors caught it, it was already stage 4. She fought with the same quiet determination she used to protect her garden from the harsh sea winds, but the illness was relentless. She passed away 2 years later. I will never forget Julian at her funeral. He was only 15 then, standing beside me at the graveside, his hand gripping mine so tightly it almost hurt. He was already almost as tall as I was. He looked down at my face, tears streaming down his own, and said, "We still have each other, Grandpa Arthur." We did. We had each other. The next few years were just the two of us navigating the grief and the quiet of our Southport cottage. I made the difficult decision to take an early retirement from teaching. I wanted to be absolutely present for Julian through his high school years. My pension was decent, but it certainly wasn't lavish. Alara and I had always been frugal, careful with our savings. We had a small life insurance payout, and I cashed in my entire retirement savings plan, which was roughly $65,000. I made it work. Julian was a remarkable young man, bright, disciplined, and genuinely hardworking in school. He set his sights on studying civil engineering at the prestigious University of Atherton, 3 states away. I was bursting with pride. Neither my sister, Lydia, nor I had ever attended university. Julian was going to be the first in our family lineage to achieve a postgraduate degree. But the University of Atherton was notoriously expensive. Even with his academic scholarships and the maximum student loans, the tuition, residence fees, and living expenses for a major city left a gaping financial chasm. So I did the only thing I could think of, the only thing that made sense for his future. I sold the house, the beautiful salt lace cottage that Alara and I had bought 42 years ago, the home where we had raised Julian from a confused little boy into a promising young man, the house where Alara had spent her last peaceful years. I sold it and moved into a tiny, cramped apartment on the 3rd floor of an old building on the outskirts of Atherton. It was a 1-bedroom unit, barely big enough for 2 people. Julian got the single bedroom, of course. I slept on a worn, uncomfortable pull-out sofa in the living room. I told myself the creaking springs were simply reminding me of the sacrifice. I took the entire proceeds from the house sale, a substantial $190,000, every penny of my accumulated equity, and placed it into an aggressive investment account. This was for Julian, for his tuition gaps, for his books, for his meals, and most importantly, for his future graduate studies if he chose to pursue them. This was the total embodiment of everything Alara and I had built together. Julian graduated from the University of Atherton just last month with his Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering, graduating near the top of his cohort. I was ecstatic. He had already secured admission to the highly competitive master's program at the Atherton Institute of Technology, AIT, which offered him a full tuition scholarship. However, the cost of living in Atherton was, as Julian liked to put it, absolutely brutal. That's what the investment account was for. The money from the house, the physical manifestation of all our love and shared history, was earmarked for his next 2 years of living expenses. I was so incredibly excited for the commencement ceremony. I splurged on a new, high-quality charcoal gray suit. I even went to the barber shop for a proper trim. I wanted to look distinguished in the photos. This was Julian's day, and I wanted to represent the legacy that had brought him to that stage. The ceremony was held at the vast Centennial Hall. I arrived early, maneuvering through the bustling crowd to secure a perfect vantage point. I was in the 3rd row, slightly to the right of the center aisle. My phone was fully charged and ready to capture the moment. Julian looked every inch the professional, handsome in his cap and gown, so impossibly grown up, 22 years old. I remembered him at 4, sobbing for his parents. I remembered him at 7, proudly showing me his first lost tooth. At 13, he was bringing home the report card that made Alara smile despite her pain. At 17, he got his learner's permit. And now, a university graduate. They announced he would be delivering the valedictorian address. My throat tightened with a profound sense of paternal pride. My Julian, my boy, the valedictorian. He walked confidently up to the grand wooden podium. The entire auditorium hushed. He adjusted the microphone, gave a nervous cough, and began to speak. "Thank you all for being here today," Julian began, his voice clear and resonant. "This is truly the defining moment I have dreamed about for years. Standing here, graduating with my degree, and looking ahead to the next chapter of my life at AIT this autumn." I was beaming. My smile was so wide my cheeks hurt. I clutched my phone, ready to hit record. I want to take a moment to thank the select few people who made this immense achievement possible. The individuals who instilled in me the ambition, who forged me into the man I stand before you as today, and who gave me the essential blueprints to realize success. This was it, the culmination of 18 years of sacrifice. I sat up straighter, my heart thumping against my ribs with anticipation. Firstly, I want to express my deepest gratitude to my professors here at the University of Athens. Your relentless commitment to academic excellence pushed me further than I thought possible every single day. Thank you. Okay, sensible. Starting with the faculty. Next, I want to thank my brilliant classmates, especially the civil engineering cohort. You challenge my assumptions. You inspire my critical thinking. You became a vital second family to me during late nights in the lab. Sure, his peers. That was appropriate, too. But most significantly, I want to thank the one man who irrevocably changed the trajectory of my life. The individual who saw potential in a young student 3 years ago took me under his wing and demonstrated what it truly means to operate in a professional sphere, what real ambition looks like, and what it means to shatter the limitations of a small-town upbringing. I frowned, a small wrinkle of confusion forming between my brows. Who was he talking about? Mr. Marcus Thorne, CEO of Thorne Haldane Consulting. When you brought me on as an intern in my second year, you didn't just offer me a job title. You gave me a vivid, tangible vision for my entire future. You connected me with the right people in the industry. You exposed me to what genuine, high-level success looks like. You treated me, quite literally, like the son you never had. And for that, I will be eternally indebted. My radiant smile dissolved completely. My hands grew instantly cold. Marcus, you showed me that where you start doesn't have to dictate where you finish. You proved that with the right guidance, the right mentorship, and the right network, absolutely anything is possible. Thank you for being the father figure I needed. He finished the phrase, and the audience erupted in applause. Several people in the middle balcony section stood up, offering a full, enthusiastic standing ovation. Julian looked up, a huge, triumphant smile stretching across his face, and waved directly at a silver-haired man in a magnificent, custom-tailored suit easily in his late 60s. He was standing, clapping with powerful, deliberate force, looking nothing short of proprietorial. That was Marcus Thorne. Julian continued, talking about his future, his professional goals, and his dreams of infrastructure development. He thanked the dean. He thanked the generous scholarship benefactors. He thanked his wonderful girlfriend, Chloe, and her incredibly supportive family. He never mentioned me. Not Grandpa Arthur, who had raised him from the age of 4. Not his family. Not the people who had nurtured his entire childhood. Not a solitary word about 18 years of selfless love. I sat there in the third row in my new, expensive charcoal gray suit, my hands shaking slightly, the phone still running, recording this moment I had waited 18 years for. I felt a painful, physical crack inside my chest. The ceremony concluded. Caps flew into the air. Music swelled. There was cheering and a dizzying flurry of hugs and photo flashes. I stood up slowly. My legs felt heavy, like lead weights had been chained to my ankles. People jostled past me, eager to reach their graduates. I just stood rooted to the spot. I spotted Julian across the vast hall. He was surrounded by a jubilant throng of friends and faculty, and right at the center was Thorne, shaking his hand, then pulling him into a familiar, intimate embrace. Julian was laughing, an unrestrained, joyous sound. I started to walk toward him, the distance feeling like a mile. I wanted to tell him I was still proud, despite the profound hurt. I wanted to give him the hug I'd planned. I got closer, maybe 15 feet away. Julian looked up. Our eyes met across the heads of the crowd. For a fleeting instant, I saw something flicker in his expression recognition, followed instantly by a flash of what looked like genuine guilt. Then, just as quickly, the connection vanished. He turned back to Thorne, nodding, then put a possessive arm around his girlfriend, Chloe. I stopped moving. I simply stood there, in the middle of the crowded hall, alone, immobile island in a sea of celebration. A young woman bumped my shoulder, offered a hasty apology, and kept moving. I simply turned around and walked out. I walked out of the auditorium, out of the building, and into the enormous parking structure. I climbed into my old, dented Nissan Altima, the car I'd been driving for 17 years. The car I couldn't afford to replace because I'd channeled every surplus penny into Julian's education and his future. I sat there for almost an hour, just staring numbly at the dashboard. My phone vibrated with a text message. It was Julian. "Hey, Grandpa. So sorry I missed you after the ceremony. It was seriously chaotic. Heading to a big celebratory dinner with Chloe's parents and Mr. Thorne. I'll call you properly tomorrow." I didn't respond. I simply drove the long, miserable route back to my small, cramped apartment on the outskirts of Atherton apartment I had moved to so Julian could have his space and his full academic funding. I walked past the terrible pull-out sofa I'd been sleeping on for 4 years. I went to the small bathroom and stared at my reflection. 67 years old. Gray hair, deep, stress-induced lines etched into my face. Wearing a stiff, new charcoal gray suit that now felt ridiculously oversized and foolish. The father figure he needed. Marcus Thorne was the father figure he needed. Not me. Not the man who had held him through recurring nightmares for 18 years. Not the man who had given up his retirement and his home to finance his entire life. I walked back into the living room. On the small, chipped coffee table sat a book. Not just any book. It was the enormous, heavy photo album I had started the very day Julian came to live with us. Every major milestone of his life was documented. Every birthday, every holiday, every first day of school, every swim meet, every award. 18 years of memories. Alara had helped me diligently until she was too ill to continue. After she died, I kept it going, spending hours carefully arranging the photos, writing descriptive notes beside each one. Julian's first swim medal. He was so proud. Julian's 16th birthday. He demanded a lemon meringue pie. Julian accepted to Atherton University. Alara would have been overjoyed. Hundreds of photos, thousands of moments, 18 years of documented love, all bound together in a simple, oversized album. I had planned to present it to him after the ceremony as a final, tangible gift, a testament to how much he was loved, how much he mattered. I picked it up, feeling the immense weight of those 18 years in my hands. Then, I simply placed it back down. I had no energy left to look. I didn't sleep that night. I lay wide-eyed on the agonizing pull-out couch, staring into the dark, replaying the words over and over. Thank you for being the father figure I needed. The next morning, I was operating on a bone-deep exhaustion, but the decision had solidified in the cold, dark hours before dawn. I called Julian. He answered on the fourth ring, his voice slightly muffled and cheerful. "Hey, Grandpa. Sorry about the radio silence yesterday. It was just an absolute whirlwind." "It's quite all right," I said. My voice sounded oddly flat, devoid of any discernible emotion, even to my own ears. "I wanted to stop by today. I have your official graduation gift." "Oh, you absolutely didn't have to give me anything, but sure." "Yeah, I'm actually at Chloe's place right now. Her parents are hosting brunch. It's in the Riverwalk district. Can you come here?" Chloe's parents' residence. A sprawling, modern home in the most exclusive section of the city. Of course, I drove over. The house was magnificent. Towering cedar siding, a 3-car garage, and a lawn meticulously maintained by professionals. The kind of wealth Alara and I could never have imagined. Julian answered the door, still in a comfortable tracksuit, perhaps around 11 in the morning. He was relaxed, radiating effortless happiness. Come in," he said, gesturing broadly. I stepped inside. The air was thick with the rich aroma of artisanal coffee and fresh, expensive floral arrangements. Through a wide archway, I could see Chloe and her mother chatting in a gourmet kitchen. They glanced at me, offered polite, fleeting smiles, and quickly went back to their conversation. Julian didn't introduce me. "Sorry, it's a bit of a mess," Julian apologized, noticing my gaze. "We were up late celebrating. Let me just grab my shoes, and we can go sit in their patio garden." "Actually, I can't stay long," I replied, stepping back slightly. "I just wanted to make sure you got this." I held out the heavy photo album. Julian took it slightly awkwardly. He looked at the familiar embossed cover. "What exactly is this?" "It is," I explained, "every significant moment of your life since you first came to live with your grandmother and me. I created it for you as a final graduation gift." He opened it, flipping through a few pages with a quick, distracted motion, looking at the photos of his younger self. His face was neutral, unreadable, not emotional, not moved, just politely compliant. Wow, he said, closing it again. This is wow. You really kept all these old photos. Every single one, I confirmed. I thought you'd want to have them, to remember. Yeah, this is really nice. Thank you, Grandpa. He held the thick album casually at his side, as if it were a heavy textbook he was waiting to discard. There was a long, uncomfortable silence. Did you want some coffee or anything? Julian offered finally. No, I should go, I said. I just wanted to ensure you received the gift. Okay. Well, thanks again. This is truly thoughtful. He walked me to the front door. I stopped on the polished stone porch, turning back to look directly at him. Your commencement speech yesterday, I said, my voice still level. It was very well delivered. Oh, thanks, he said, puffing his chest slightly. Yeah, I was pretty nervous, but I think it went over really well. You thanked a great many people. Yeah, well, I had a lot of incredible help getting to where I am today. Marcus Thorne, I stated simply. He must be a very special person. Julian's expression changed immediately, shifting to a guarded defensiveness. He's been a phenomenal mentor to me. He's connected me with every influential person in the industry. He wrote me stellar letters of recommendation. He's been incredibly generous with his time and resources. That is truly wonderful, I said, nodding slowly. It is vital to have good mentors. Yeah, it really is. Another long, heavy pause settled between us. Anyway, Julian said, breaking the silence, thanks for coming by, and thanks for the album. I'll look through it properly later. You do that, I said. I drove home, back to the tiny apartment, and sat down to stare at the peeling paint on the walls. 2 days later, Julian sent me another text. Hey, Grandpa, cleaning out my stuff at the apartment before the move to AIT. Do you want to come collect any old furniture or boxes? Most of it is pretty dated. The apartment. The one-bedroom unit we had shared. The bedroom I had given him. I drove over. Julian was there with Chloe. The apartment was already half empty, echoing with the sound of movement. Boxes were stacked everywhere. Hey, Julian greeted me. Thanks for coming. I wasn't sure what you want to keep. Most of this stuff is pretty worn out. I looked around at the relics of my old life. The kitchen table where I'd patiently taught him calculus. The simple bookshelf where Alara kept her antique cookbooks. The brass floor lamp that had illuminated our old Southport living room. I'll take the books, I said quietly. And the lamp. Sure. Then Julian reached down and picked up an object from beside the door. The large photo album. It was sitting on the floor next to a large cardboard box marked, Donate to Thrift Store. Oh, and here, Julian said, handing it to me. I figured you'd probably want this back. It's more of your thing than mine, right? All those ancient photos. About everything digital now anyway. I stared at the album. 18 years of devotion, of recorded, tangible love, discarded casually next to a donation box. Right? I heard myself say. My voice seemed to come from a great distance. I'll take it. I picked it up, feeling the immense, crushing weight of those memories one last time. Julian had already turned away, consulting with Chloe about the best way to pack the silverware. I walked out, drove home, and set the album down on my small coffee table. I sat back on the awful pull-out sofa, and I felt nothing at all. Not rage, not deep sadness, just a profound, empty void. Something essential inside me had simply shut off. I opened the album and flipped through the pages. I saw Alara's looping, familiar handwriting on some of the early pages. Our sweet boy, a profound gift from the universe. I saw photos of myself, younger, smiling, always standing by the edge of the swim lanes or sitting front and center at a school play. I saw photos of Julian growing up, happy, secure. And then the truth struck me with the force of a physical blow. He loved what I gave him. The security, the education, the opportunities, the stable home to grow up in, the money to attend elite universities. But he didn't love me. I was merely the old caretaker, the necessary bank account, the inconvenient placeholder until a figure of genuine power and status, a Marcus Thorne, came along. And once that successful, wealthy, connected man arrived, everything I was became utterly, truly invisible. I closed the album and placed it inside the closet. I sat back down. It was evening now. I knew I should prepare a meal, but I had no hunger. I opened my aged laptop instead. I logged into my bank account, the high-interest investment fund, the one holding the proceeds from the sale of Alara's house. Current balance, $212,688. Julian's graduate school fund, for his master's at AIT, for his living expenses, for his future. I stared at the number. Then, I opened my email and began typing. Dear Office of Financial Aid, Atherton Institute of Technology. The next morning, I called Julian again. Hey, Grandpa, what's up? He asked, a hint of impatience in his voice. I need to tell you something, I said, keeping my voice utterly neutral. It's about your graduate school fund. Oh yeah? What about it? I've transferred it. A beat of absolute, stunned silence. Then, Julian's voice, sharp and high, crackling with sudden fear and disbelief. You've what? I have transferred the money. All of it. The $212,688 is now invested in the future of another student. What in God's name are you talking about? That's my money. That's my education fund. That's the money from the house. His voice was rising, laced now with genuine panic. It was never your money, Julian, I corrected him calmly. It was my investment, my home, my life savings. And I have chosen to invest it in someone who will actually appreciate the opportunity. You can't do that. That's for my master's degree at AIT. I'm supposed to start in September. Then I suppose you should direct your inquiries toward your beloved mentor, Marcus Thorne. About funding, I suggested, the coldness finally entering my tone. Since he has been so incredibly generous with his time, advice, and network. Is this because of the commencement speech? Seriously? You're doing this over a speech. This is because you placed an album documenting 18 years of my life and your grandmother's love next to a donation box. Julian, I articulated each word slow and deliberate. This is because you introduced a man you've known for 3 years as the father figure you needed. This is because, fundamentally, you forgot where you came from and you forgot the true cost of your opportunities. Grandpa, you're being completely ridiculous. I'm sorry I didn't mention you specifically in the speech, but there were dozens of people to thank, and I only had 10 minutes. And the album thing, I just thought you'd want those photos back. I honestly didn't know it was that big of a deal. It wasn't a big deal to you, I countered. That is precisely the point. So no, I'm not taking away your fund because my feelings were merely hurt. I am investing in a young woman who possesses the understanding of what education means, what genuine sacrifice demands, and what true appreciation looks like. You have Marcus Thorne. I am certain he will help you figure this out. This is insane. You can't legally do this. I already have, I said, looking out the window at the endless sprawl of Atherton. I contacted the university's financial aid office yesterday. The transfer is completed. The recipient is a young woman named Anya Sharma, a first-generation college student working 4 jobs to complete her undergraduate degree. She has been accepted to the exact same master's program at AIT as you. She will use the money better than you would have. I need that money. My living expenses, my future career, everything depends on it. No, you don't, Julian. You now have connections. You have the power of Marcus Thorne's network. You have Chloe's family. You will be fine. Grandpa, please don't do this to me. I'm begging you. It is done, Owen, I repeated, finality ringing in my voice. And do not call me again unless you figure out what the last 18 years of my life were actually worth. I hung up the phone. It rang immediately. I declined the call. It rang again, insistently. I turned the phone completely off. I sat there in my miserable little apartment on my creaking pull-out couch in a single-bedroom unit I afforded myself, and I felt absolutely nothing. The silence was a profound, quiet victory. 3 days later, there was a tentative, urgent knocking on my apartment door. I opened it. Julian was standing there. He looked terrible unshaven, tired, visibly stressed, and frantic. The picture of entitlement being suddenly yanked back to reality. Can we please talk? He pleaded. If you'd like, I replied, stepping aside. He walked in and looked around the cramped space, scanning the dated furniture, the small, inefficient kitchen, the worn floorboards. It was as if he were seeing it for the first time. "You've been living like this?" he asked, his voice low with shock. "For 4 years," I confirmed. "Yes. I didn't I didn't realize you weren't paying attention." He sank down onto a dining chair, placing his head in his hands. "I spoke with Mr. Thorne about the funding for AIT. He was sympathetic, but he said he couldn't promise anything substantial right now. His firm is undergoing some significant restructuring and budget cuts." "I see." "Chloe's parents offered to help, but they're already paying for her graduate program at the university in Boston, and they genuinely don't have enough liquidity for both of us." "That is truly unfortunate," I replied, remaining standing. "Grandpa, please. I need that money. I've already formally accepted the position. I've already told them I'm coming. If I back out now, I'll lose the spot. They'll offer it to someone else. They'll offer it to Anya Sharma. I finished for him, and she will thrive." "Why are you doing this to me?" he demanded, looking up, his eyes bloodshot. I looked at him, really looked at him. 22 years old, driven, now angry, confused, and utterly desperate. "I'm not doing anything to you, Julian," I said gently. "I am doing something for myself. For the first time in 18 years, I am finally choosing me. But I'm your grandson, your family. Yes, you are. And I loved you. I gave you everything I had. Everything. My time, my entire savings, my home, my peace of mind, Ilara's cherished legacy, all of it for you. And I'm grateful." "No, you are not," I stated flatly. "You are grateful to Marcus Thorne, the man who gave you a lucrative internship, but the man who gave you 18 years of absolute stability and shelter. That man was forgettable enough to be omitted entirely from your moment of triumph. It was just one speech, one moment of poor judgment. It was the single moment that mattered most, Julian, and it showed me the definitive truth. You appreciate what I gave you, but you don't value me. You don't respect me. You don't even truly see me. That's not true, Dash. You placed the photo album, the one documenting every birthday and illness and achievement, next to a donation box." I interjected, allowing no argument. He looked down, unable to meet my gaze, unable to deny the cruelty of the act. "I spent 18 years meticulously documenting your existence. Your grandmother spent her last healthy years helping me curate that album. Every first step, every single milestone. And you looked at it once, said, 'That's nice,' and put it beside a box marked donate. I didn't mean Dash." "Yes, you did." I cut him off. "You meant it. Just as you meant not mentioning me in your address. Just as you meant not seeing this tiny, cramped apartment I've been living in. Just as you meant calling Marcus Thorne the father figure you needed. You meant every single bit of it." He was crying now. Actual, silent tears of shame and frustration. "Please, Grandpa. I'll do better. I promise I will be better. Just give me another chance. I'll make it up to you. I've given you 18 years of chances, Julian. I'm tired. I am 67 years old, and I am profoundly tired." He stood up, rage replacing the tears. "So that's it? You're just going to throw me away over $200,000. "I'm not throwing you away." I corrected him, the distinction vital. "I'm letting you go. There's a difference. You're a bitter old man." Julian spat out, his face contorted in a mix of fury and devastation. "That is precisely what you are. You can't stand that I found success with someone other than you. You can't stand that I grew beyond this." He flung his hand around the small apartment, gesturing wildly at the dated furniture and the pull-out couch. "Beyond this small life. Perhaps you're right." I conceded, letting the accusation hang in the air. "Maybe I'm bitter, but I'm done apologizing for not being Marcus Thorne. I am done being utterly invisible in my own grandson's life." He stormed out, slamming the thin wooden door behind him with a violence that rattled the few remaining objects on my shelves. I sat back down, picked up my phone, and turned it back on. Instantly, a barrage of notifications exploded onto the screen. There were 19 missed calls from Julian over the past 3 days. 7 frantic voicemails. Dozens of text messages. Every single one of them was demanding the same thing. He needed the money, he deserved the money, and I was being profoundly unfair. Not a single text or voicemail contained the phrase, "I'm sorry." Not one of them said, "I love you." Not a single message offered, "Thank you for the 18 years." I deleted them all. 2 weeks later, I received an official, elegant email from the Office of Financial Aid at the Atherton Institute of Technology. They confirmed that the entire fund had been successfully transferred to Anya Sharma. They offered their profound gratitude for my extraordinary generosity. Attached was a scanned note from Anya herself. "Dear Mr. Sterling, I cannot fully express the depth of my gratitude for this life-altering opportunity. My parents immigrated to this country with nothing but hope, and they have worked tireless hours in warehouses and factories so that I might attend school. I have been working 4 jobs to save for graduate school, but it was simply not enough to cover the living expenses in Atherton. Your gift means I can finally focus on my research instead of worrying about eviction or where my next meal will come from. I promise you, I will make the absolute most of this chance. Thank you for believing in me. With deepest gratitude, Anya Sharma." I read the note 5 times. This, I thought with a quiet certainty, was what genuine appreciation looked like. The relief and pride I felt far outweighed the bitterness. A month later, I did something I hadn't done since before Alara got sick. I attended a social event. It was a welcome evening hosted by a retirement community in a better, quieter part of Atherton. I had been seriously considering moving there, selling the small, cramped apartment, and finding a place among people my own age, people who would naturally see me. I went. I spoke to people, and I made a connection. Her name was Victoria. She was 69, a widow, a former architect. She had raised 3 successful children entirely alone after her husband passed young. She understood, in a silent, knowing way, what it meant to pour your entire soul into family. We had tea, then a light dinner. We started spending time together, actual, enjoyable, reciprocal time. We talked about history, about Alara, about her children, and about the architecture of Atherton. I felt seen. I didn't feel invisible anymore. I sold the tiny apartment and moved into the retirement community. A beautiful, sun-filled, one-bedroom residence of my own. No pull-out couch. Victoria helped me arrange my books and art. We started going to local art shows together, took scenic drives down the coast to Cape Elizabeth, and joined a historical society. I was, for the first time since Alara died, genuinely happy. 3 months after the fund transfer, Julian called. I almost didn't answer, but I decided I was strong enough now. I pressed the answer button. "Hey, Grandpa," he said, his voice hesitant and quiet. "Hello, Julian. I wanted to tell you, I'm not going to AIT. I didn't enroll in a master's program." "I see." Mr. Thorne offered me a lateral move into a junior civil engineer position at his firm. "It's a good starting salary, excellent benefits." He said he'd keep the door open for grad school later. "That is a positive development. Congratulations." Silence settled between us again. "How are you doing?" he finally asked. "I am well. I moved into a retirement community. I am very much enjoying the change of scenery." "Oh, that's good." More silence. Then Julian spoke again, his voice cracking slightly. "Grandpa, I have been thinking constantly about what you said, about the speech, about the album, about everything. And I think I finally understand what you were trying to tell me." "Do you?" "I took you completely for granted. I didn't see what you gave up for me, not the real cost. I was so ruthlessly focused on moving forward and achieving success that I forgot the foundation. I forgot where I came from. I'm truly sorry." I felt something shift in my heart. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a painful, necessary softening. "Thank you for saying that, Julian," I said. "I was wondering," he continued, the hope returning to his voice, "if maybe we could have dinner sometime. If you'd be willing. Maybe someday." I replied gently, maintaining the boundary. "But not yet. I'm not ready for that yet." "Okay, I understand. I'll wait." "You do that." We hung up. I sat in my new, peaceful apartment. Victoria was coming over in an hour. We were going to watch a classic documentary about the Roman Empire. She was bringing homemade spiced cookies. I was making fresh lemonade. I looked at the large photo album. It was now resting on a bookshelf, no longer hidden in the closet. I hadn't looked through it again, and I still wasn't ready to. Maybe someday I would. or perhaps I wouldn't. Either way, I was okay, because I had learned the most important lesson of my life, a lesson it took 67 years and the ultimate heartbreak to fully grasp. You can love someone with everything you possess. You can sacrifice your home, your wealth, your comfort, and your identity. But if they don't see you, if they don't value you, and if they take you for granted, then you have a moral obligation to choose yourself. Even if it is the hardest thing you have ever done, even if it feels like a monumental failure, it is not giving up. It is simply letting go. And sometimes, letting go is the only way you can save the person you have left to live for. That's what I did. I let go. I chose me.